Hello, everyone. It is time for the pointer of the week, or the point of the week, or the tip of the week. All right. We're just going to work on patterns from your modes. All right. We usually work in blocks, but what we're going to concentrate on is kind of focusing on the different areas of the guitar when you're doing your solos, instead of just kind of working on mode one, mode two, mode three, that kind of a thing. All right, so if we're doing something from, let's say, the G major scale here, the 3-5-2-3-5, we have that here as well. All right, then you have your second mode. All right, and then we stay on that. So um, when you're doing solos at this point in time, what you might want to start doing is working from one string. And I would start with the first string. All right. If you're playing solos, you can just kind of get to know where you are, right? Get to know where you are on that string. This would be the key of G major, right? Because that's okay if you're here. Right, that would be your second mode. So you could just work just from one string. The reason I chose the first string is when we are doing solos, a lot of times for the lead, we'll use the higher strings, the higher toned or higher pitched strings. What's going on, it's something that goes on the inside, right? And the higher pitched strings, or the first three strings, help us to better identify with what we're feeling inside. Okay. You could do that for the heavier strings, because when there's this like a there's different things that you can do depending on how you're feeling, but to make, a lot of times, naturally, to make your, when you feel you want to make your expression felt a little bit more, a lot of times we tend to go for the higher pitch, right, or the higher string. So in saying that, work primarily off of your first string, because your first string is the equivalent of your sixth string. So you get a better understanding, you get more familiar with what you're doing. Now we're just working on the G. So I would go from the first position of the G just to the 12th fret, right? So you can, all right, so that's your 12th fret, and just kind of, right, you see what I'm doing when I get to that 12th fret? I'm kind of like really kind of putting a lot in there. That's what usually happens when you ascend in the pitches. When you ascend, you get to the highest note there. That's the one that you're like driving your point home with. That's usually what happens naturally. All right, so there's two reasons why I'm saying work off that first string. You're more in touch with your expression when you're hitting that first string a lot of the times. I'm not going to say all the time. It's just a lot of the times. Second reason is just more of a materialistic standpoint, or a superficial standpoint, but it's very practical. You have, when you're playing alongside of other instruments, even if you're like, you've pre-recorded a rhythm, a lot of times when you're playing the rhythm, you're covering the bass part of the rhythm as well. When you're playing a chord, right? You're playing a G chord, you're covering a bass in there. right? So if I'm playing something like a couple of chords there, I'm hitting heavier notes too, along with the lighter pitched notes, but I'm really hearing the heavier pitch. So when you're playing your leads, you instinctively want to play. You go for the first string because you don't want to play two heavy notes together. You know what I mean? A heavy note over a heavy note. You can do that, but a lot of times we naturally want to get our point across, and we want it to get heard so much, and there's a lot of feeling going on, so we go for that first string. So those are the two reasons. You have the accompaniment of the other instruments and you want to be heard, so you go for that first string. Second would be you better identify with that first string when you have a lot of emotions you want to put out there. All right, I'm going to give you a third reason that's very practical as well, and that's what the whole idea of this is. Your placements, all right? The placements of where you are so that you don't get lost and you get more familiar with the sixth and the first string being the same, okay? Just different octaves. If you know that this can be played up here, the rest isn't so hard. It's not really that hard because you'll know though when you do that, you've got to be somewhere, if not the first position, you've got to be somewhere close to it. All right, if you practice this method. If you practice that and you already know your modes, so that's going to help you to freely play because you know where the blocks are. This is one block, right? This is the second block. And this is the third block, right? I'm just playing extra notes in there. But you get the idea. These are the blocks, or the modes, I should say. Those are your modes. They're in blocks. So using the one string will help you to kind of freely play and play with confidence. The other thing too is once you get going with your first string, do it for the second string too and the third string, because those are the three strings that you usually play around with leads when you really get confident. Those are the three strings that you're going to usually use. All right, so you hear, all right, that's your second string. We have, you have your third string in there. So play around with those things and try to do the same for your pentatonic. If for the G, that would be the E pentatonic. So play around with the placements there. Start with the first string. It will work really well, especially with the pentatonic. But I wanted to do a little bit more challenging method on your major scale. That will help. If you could do the major scale, you can do that for pretty much anything. All right. Okay. So I hope this helps, and try to practice it. See what works for you. All right. Have a good one. Good day, and God bless.